Welcome back to Game of Theories, where I introduce theories of management, administration, and leadership. This is episode 36. In this episode, we're going to explore attribution theory. It's a theory that explains how we perceive and assign causes to events and behavior, shaping our understanding of ourselves and others. Attribution is a term used in psychology to describe how we interpret the causes of everyday experiences, whether attributing them to external factors or internal factors. The models developed to explain this mental process are called attribution theory. The attribution model of leadership, developed in the late 1970s and early 1980s, provides a theoretical framework to explain leader behaviors by examining their causal explanations for employee performance. According to this model, leaders evaluate employee performance on the task by considering the extent of consensus among other employees, whether they perform equally well or poorly, consistency of employees' performance across time and situation, and the distinctiveness of employees' performance on other tasks. Through this covariation analysis, leaders determine whether to attribute the performance level to the employee's internal attributes or external factors, resulting in an internal or external attribution. For example, if an employee consistently performs poorly on a specific task, lacks distinctiveness in performing well on other tasks, and shows low consensus with other employees who generally perform well on the same task, the leader is likely to make an internal attribution, attributing the poor performance to factors such as lack of abilities or skills. In the process of covariation analysis, leaders often simplify the complex tasks by utilizing cognitive shortcuts, relying on causal categories such as ability, effort, task difficulty, and luck to efficiently determine causal explanations for employee performance. The four explanations can be grouped into two dimensions of causality: locus of causality and stability. Locus of causality refers to whether employee performance is attributed to internal or external factors, while stability means whether the cause is considered stable or unstable over time. Let's explore these explanations with examples. First, ability is an internal and stable explanation, attributing employee performance to their inherent skills, knowledge, or talent. For example, if an employee consistently excels in a particular task, the leader may attribute it to the employee's ability to effectively use their expertise. Second, effort is an internal and unstable explanation that emphasizes the employee's exerted effort as the cause of their performance. If an employee shows significant improvement in a task due to increased dedication and hard work, the leader may attribute their success to the effort they invested. Third, task difficulty is an external and stable explanation focusing on the complexity or challenges inherent in the task itself. If an employee struggles with a difficult project, the leader may attribute their performance to the demanding nature of the task rather than their personal qualities. Fourth, luck is an external and unstable explanation attributing employee performance to chance or random factors. If an employee unexpectedly achieves outstanding results without a clear explanation, the leader may attribute it to luck or favorable circumstances beyond their control. The attribution model of leadership suggests that leaders' attributions for employee performance play a significant role in shaping their expectations for future performance and their subsequent behaviors toward the employee. When faced with poor performance, leaders are more likely to direct their corrective actions toward the employees if they make an internal attribution, attributing the cause to employees' internal characteristics. On the other hand, if leaders make an external attribution, attributing the cause to situational factors beyond the employee's control, they are more likely to target their actions towards addressing those situational factors. For example, if a leader attributes an employee's poor performance to a lack of ability or effort, which is internal attribution, they may choose to punish the employee as a means of correction. However, if the leader attributes the poor performance to external factors such as task difficulty or luck, they may focus on modifying the task or providing additional support to improve future performance. Moreover, when leaders attribute employee performance to stable causes that are likely to persist over time, such as inherent abilities or task difficulty, they tend to expect future performance to be consistent with the present performance. This can result in more severe actions, such as demotion or dismissal, if the leader believes the employee will continue to perform poorly in an unchanging situation. On the other hand, when leaders make unstable internal attributions, such as attributing poor performance to a lack of effort, their rewarding or punishing reactions are particularly strong. Leaders view effort as something within the control of the employee, and therefore they may respond more strongly by punishing employees for their perceived lack of effort compared to attributing poor performance to less controllable factors. The initial attribution model of leadership primarily examined how leaders attribute causes to employee performance. However, subsequent research expanded the model by considering employees' perspectives and their attributions regarding their own performance. This extension recognizes that employees also engages in the process of attributing causes to their performance. At the dyadic level, when both leaders and employees' attributions are taken into account, valuable insights can be gained. The agreement or disagreement between leaders and employees on their causal explanations becomes a meaningful predictor of various outcomes. Similar to leaders, employees use cognitive shortcuts to arrive at their attributions for their own performance. For example, an employee may attribute their high performance to their ability or the effort they exerted, which are internal attributions, considering it as a stable quality. Alternatively, they might attribute their poor performance to external factors like the task difficulty they encountered or even luck, which are external attributions, perceiving it as an unstable cause that can change over time. Interestingly, within the interactive attribution model of leadership, leaders and employees often develop divergent attributions despite facing a shared objective reality. This disparity arises due to the influence of perceptual biases that shape both leaders and employees' attributional processes, including the actor-observer bias and the self-serving bias. The actor-observer bias means that when we evaluate our own actions, we tend to consider the situational factors and intentions behind those actions, giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt. However, when evaluating the actions of others, we often focus on their behavior and attribute it to their personal traits or dispositions without fully considering the context or their intentions. We often judge ourselves based on our intentions and the circumstances surrounding our actions, while we judge others based on their observable behavior, sometimes overlooking the influence of situational factors or their intentions. The self-serving bias is our tendency to attribute our success to our inherent qualities or abilities, reinforcing a positive self-image. However, when faced with failures or negative outcomes, we're more likely to attribute them to external factors or other individuals, protecting our self-esteem. Over time, these divergent attributions can generate significant conflict between leaders and employees. For example, a leader may attribute an employee's subpar task performance to a lack of ability, while the employee attributes it to equipment failure. In this case, when the leader reprimands the employee feels unjustly blamed for the situation and believes that the leader fails to acknowledge the equipment issue. This can lead to reduced productivity, decreased satisfaction, and a deterioration of leader-employee relationship. Continued blame from leaders towards employees for poor performance may result in the employee being relegated to the outgroup, leading to diminished access to resources and limited developmental opportunities. In response, employees may resort to engaging in destructive behaviors in the workplace, such as theft or harassment, or opt for withdrawal strategy like increased absenteeism or even quitting together. The presence of these conflicting attributions underscores the significance of effectively managing attributions within the leader-employee dynamic. By fostering a climate of shared understanding, encouraging open communication, and addressing perceptual biases, leaders can mitigate conflict and enhance the overall productivity and satisfaction. Another significant outcome of divergent attributions is the potential development of learned helplessness among employees. This condition refers to the experience of anxiety, stress, apathy, and shame that arises from repeated failures, which are attributed to stable internal causes. When employees feel helpless, they're more inclined to give up, exert less effort, and ultimately contemplate leaving their jobs. Within the attribution model of leadership, it is suggested that leaders may inadvertently attribute to the development of learned helplessness in employees when they attribute employee failures to their lack of effort, while employees attribute their failure to their inherent abilities. In this case, the leader is more likely to administer punishment as a response, which the employee perceives as inappropriate. This further reinforces their sense of uncontrollable failure, intensifying their feelings of learned helplessness. The frequent occurrence of divergent attributions between leaders and employees can result in detrimental consequences for both parties. Leaders' punitive actions based on their attributions may be perceived by employees as unjust and exacerbate their sense of helplessness. This in turn hinders employee motivation, engagement, and overall job satisfaction. Moreover, such discordance in attributions may strain the leader-employee relationship, leading to decreased trust and collaboration. How to apply the attribution model of leadership to your practices? As you attribute causes to employee performance, your decisions on punishment, reward, development, and overall reactions can either motivate or demotivate your team members. But here is the catch. Accurate attributions are essential. The actor-observer bias and self-serving bias can sneak into your decision-making process, clouding your judgment. Before you take disciplinary actions that might change an employee's future, seek evidence before passing a judgment. You want to ensure that you have a clear understanding of the underlying causes contributing to the employee's underperformance. While people's perceptions shape their reality, it's important for leaders to exercise caution when applying the principle of my perception is my reality in the leadership context. While leaders have their own perspectives and interpretations of events, It's crucial to recognize that perceptions can be influenced by biases, limited information, and individual filters. Leadership involves working with a group of individuals who have different perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences. Emphasizing solely one's own perception as the ultimate reality disregards the valuable insights and contributions of others. It can hinder collaboration, create misunderstanding, and limit the ability to make informed decisions. Effective leadership calls for empathy, open-mindedness, and a willing to consider multiple perspectives. Leaders should actively seek input and feedback from their team members, fostering an environment that values diverse viewpoints. By incorporating diverse perspectives, leaders can gain a more comprehensive understanding of the complex reality and make informed decisions that benefit the entire team or organization. So be cautious when you say, my perception is my reality. Now let's flip the coin and explore employees' attributions for their own performance. Trust is the cornerstone here. Create an environment where trust thrives, a safe space for open and honest communication. When employees feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns, you gain valuable insights into perspectives on the causes of their performance. Shared attributions emerge from open and honest conversations. No theory is perfect. What are criticisms of attribution theory? One criticism is that the attribution theory tends to oversimplify the complex nature of human behavior by categorizing attributions into discrete dimensions, such as internal or external causes, stable or unstable causes. For example, categorizing behavior as solely internal or external fails to account for the intricate interplay between personal, social, and environmental factors. It overlooks situations where behavior may be influenced by a combination of internal attributes and external circumstances. Another criticism of the attribution theory is that its emphasis on individual level attributions neglects broader social and organizational factors. For example, leadership effectiveness is not solely determined by individual attributions, but also by factors such as organizational culture, power dynamics, and group norms. Focusing solely on individual attributions overlooks the systemic influences on leadership outcomes. Third, critics question predictive validity of the attribution theory, suggesting that attributions may not consistently translate into actual leader behaviors or outcomes. For example, a leader may attribute an employee's poor performance to internal factors, such as lack of effort, but still provide support and guidance rather than resorting to punishment. The complexity of human behavior and the influence of various intervening factors can weaken the direct link between attributions and subsequent behaviors. Those criticisms are opportunities for you to further develop the attribution theory and propose better theories. Thanks for watching this video on the attribution theory. If you are interested in learning more about theories of management, administration, and leadership, be sure to tune in into my future videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you want to know more about how to build a theoretical framework for your research, check out my book titled Demystify Theories, a workbook for developing theoretical frameworks of educational leadership research. The link of the book is in the description below.